Hi, y'all. I'm Bridget.
And I'm Maddie. Welcome. Okay, sorry. That sounded really lame. Maddie. I'm Maddie. Okay, go again.
Hi, y'all. Okay, sorry. Hi, y'all. I'm Bridget.
And I'm Maddie. Welcome to Baddy Breakdowns, where we hang out, have fun, and play games all the way to the end. We're happy you're here. Today, we're going to talk about The Last of Us, the game and the new show on HBO. We're going to start with sharing a short description of the game, talk a little bit about who made it, how it was made, its critical reception, and then we're going to deep dive on the game and our experience playing it, closing with if we recommend it, who we recommend it to, and our personal rating for the game. And then we're also going to do something super similar, but a shortened version of that for the first 2 episodes of The Last of Us TV show that just started airing on HBO. So, with that, let's protect Ellie.
I saw that and I was like, she doesn't need protecting.
I guess not. Okay, so game description. In a ravaged civilization where infected and hardened survivors run rampant, Joel, a weary protagonist, is hired to smuggle 14-year-old Ellie out of a military quarantine zone. However, what starts as a small job soon transforms into a brutal cross-country journey.
Did you write that yourself?
PlayStation wrote that.
Oh, okay.
That was on the PlayStation
I was
PDP
like, that
for
was
the
really
game.
eloquent.
And PDP stands for Product Detail Page. There you go. All right.
So, how it's made?
Yeah.
I was really excited to do this how it's made because The Last of Us, it was my very first game on PlayStation ever in my whole life. I know. Thank you. I did manage to get a PS5. That was not actually that hard, so...
Not anymore.
No, I got it from like Walmart or whatever. But I was excited for it because it was such a cinematic game and I love like movies and film and stuff. So I was excited to see how they did do like the making of it. It's super interesting. Starting at the beginning, The Last of Us was released on PlayStation 3 originally back in like 2013 by Naughty Dog. Yeah, it's an older game. There are 3 versions of it, which we'll talk about, so it doesn't feel that old.
Okay.
But it was released back in 2013 by Naughty Dog, which is an in-house studio for PlayStation. And at the time, they were mostly well-known for their Uncharted franchise, which was, super popular.
Wait, also, didn't they do Crash Bandicoot?
Yes. Yeah, I believe so.
That's how I know them.
I have also never played Crash Bandicoot.
I grew up playing Crash Bandicoot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very much so. All of PlayStation, everything is new to me. Although, wasn't Crash on more than just PlayStation, or did I make that up?
It was just PlayStation.
Oh, okay.
I was a PlayStation gal before I started working at Xbox.
Oh,
yeah.
I was a Nintendo girl before I started working.
I mean, I also did Nintendo, but like... Growing up, we had a Sega Genesis, a Nintendo, and a PlayStation.
Gotcha.
Never did Xbox.
My brother had an Xbox 360, but I didn't play it. I only played all of our like Nintendo stuff. But yeah. So the release of the original game, or since that release, there has been 2 remasters as well as the sequel. The first remaster was released only a year after the first game.
Oh.
Yeah, and the reason for that, my hunch, is that the PS4 came out in 2014, and so The Last of Us came out the last year of the PS3 generation, and it was probably like, since it did so well critically, I can see why they were like, hey, with the new tech, let's make another version of it. But that version, I think, is pretty close to the original. It was just taking advantage of like the new PS4 tech that existed. And then if you fast forward to 2020, they released The Last of Us Part 2, which was the sequel. And then in 2022, so just this past, like I think September or something, they released The Last of Us Part 1, which is the original game. But it was a total remake that used a lot of the upgraded visuals that they had created for Part 2.
Oh.
Yeah. And so actually, like, we had Chris start a scene of The Last of Us Part 2 so I could kind of see what it felt like once this game was over. It looks exactly the same. like character like
Did
wise.
you buy Last of Us Part 1?
Yeah. I played part 1.
I bought Last of Us Remastered.
Yeah, so
Is the story different?
No. So that's I have a little bit on the differences between the two because that was the thing that was most confusing to me when I was trying to figure out which one I wanted to play. So The Last of Us, the original one in 2013, the remastered version of the one that you played was the 2014 version. And then the part 1 is the same thing like story-wise, but it pretty much uses that new like upgraded visuals, some new mechanics from the part 2 game. So they aligned the UI to match more similarly to part 2. And then they had some little like tweaks and level redesigns, some different animations that they had. And the overall just like visual aesthetic of it was made to like take more advantage of the new like PlayStation 5 visuals. And the like last little bit that was a little different, which you probably didn't play if you did the remake version, is they had a DLC back for the original.
My remaster included
Oh,
the
it did?
DLC.
Okay, that's good. Okay. Because, like, Left Behind for the original one wasn't included. It was a DLC. So it must be included in the remake. It was also included in part 1. There was a little bit of controversy with the fact that they had remade The Last of Us so many times in, like, 9 years. Because you're like, okay, do you really need to make a game that many times? I kind of formed an opinion on it, which was, I think that in 9 years, video games have come so far that, to me, the visual aspects of this game are so important that I could see why after making part 2, they were like, hey, we have all this stuff. And they probably knew a TV show was coming, you know?
Totally.
And so they're like, hey, let's just make it better than it is right now for... Like, it's all about storytelling and it's so much about cinematics that I can see why they did it. And for me, I loved playing it. I thought it looked like a next-gen game. I have no qualms with the fact that they made a new one, especially as someone who played for the first time. If you played the original one, I don't know if it's worth the value because I'd never played the original, but yeah, because it was the price of a full game.
Oh, it was $60?
Yeah.
Mine was 20.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
cool. I'm excited to see clips that you do.
Yeah.
And I want to see the difference. Yeah.
I recorded like my entire gameplay this time because I was like, I'm not replaying this whole game to get clips. So to talk a little bit more about the actual how it was made, I wanted to put in some extra time because I know that so many people love this game so much. And there is so much content because people love it so much. And so I'm going to try and distill it. If there is more that you guys would like to read or learn, then I do have the links to the things that I watched and read, so we can put those in the show notes. Perfect. A lot of the information that I'm going to talk about was actually a part of the documentary that PlayStation released, and it looked like they had actually filmed that during the making of the first original Last of Us, so you got like clips of them all the way through production and development. It was super interesting.
That is cool.
And I got a little bit also from the director's commentary. So once you finish the new part 1, you have the option to replay with all the cinematics having a director's commentary on it.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
And so you can watch all of that online on YouTube, which is what I did because I didn't want to replay it all. I didn't have time.
Yeah.
But they have a lot of bonuses and extras, and that is one of the things. Yeah. So first thing I want to talk about is that The Last of Us really revolutionized, at the time, this cinematic experience that took set design and visuals and these cutscenes and acting all the way to even like the camera angles they used the term like grounding to like ground this game into like realism and really make you feel what the characters were feeling. And the whole idea was pitched by Neil Druckmann, who is the creative director, and Bruce Staley, I think I'm saying that right, the game design director. Their goal wasn't, let's make a cool zombie shooter game. Their goal was actually to tell this post-apocalyptic story about the developing relationship between two people, Ellie and Joel in this case. And so much of the game and the direction of the game and the choices that they made when they were creating it is centered just around these characters, their growth, and making sure that whatever the players were doing, they were doing it to feel more about what they would be feeling, see more of their growth, and grow with them. And a lot of choices were made in the game in order to like express that. So I'll give an example. One of the really cool things that I saw was that they took this idle animation for Ellie, and over time the idle animation changes as the game goes on because she gets more comfortable with Joel. So at the beginning, during her idles, she'll sit there and she'll like hold her elbow and be like waving
Yeah,
back and forth.
Like kind of fidgety.
Fidgety, yeah. And then at the end, she's standing a lot more confidently and like exploring on her own and looking around and stuff. And it's so that you can kind of see the fact that she's gotten more comfortable with Joel. She's gotten more confident in exploring her environment. And so they did like little things throughout the game to
That's cool.
Yeah, I know. And when I played, I don't think that I consciously noticed that.
No, I don't think I did either.
But I think it all goes together to building an environment that feels believable. And I will say that the environment felt totally believable. Another part of this cinematic experience that they built were all about the actors themselves, and the roles that they performed were done via motion capture. I'm going to use the term mocap.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so if you're unfamiliar with mocap, they use it in movies all the time. So generally it's used for things that need like high levels of visual effects that have like human movement or like animation that are needed. So as an example, if you've seen like Lord of the Rings, Gollum was all mocap. The idea is that you put these ridiculous suits that are covered in balls, like ping pong balls pretty much, on actors, and then you capture their movements and then use those movements to actually animate the 3D character model in a way that feels a lot more natural. And you usually capture a lot more of the like micro movements and making it more believable that way. So they did a really interesting combination of mocap and hand animation. They had this goal of they wanted to capture those subtle nuances of character movement so that you could be like her eyebrows raised in that moment and you saw the eyes sag and like, you know, so that it really felt like a human was there like doing the acting for you. The actors that did the voice acting also did the mocap. And so, yeah, they like totally like made a movie. They made a movie. And in this documentary, you could see the whole mocap stage that they had set up. They had like little plastic guns. They had on the dumb mocap suits and fully acted out these scenes. And they motion captured all the bodies, but not the faces. So the hand animating that they did was they had animators rewatch these scenes over and over again and animate the faces in the video game by hand based on them filming.
Is there a reason they split the face? Okay.
Yeah, so yes, they split them specifically because the studio had seen other video games do mocap on faces, and it doesn't do the tiny nuanced like pieces. Like the mocap will capture the fact that they were like smiling or frowning or whatever.
But it won't get what you really want.
Exactly. And since this was so much about how the characters were feeling, and at the end of the day, this really was like a drama, right?
Yeah.
And you couldn't tell that story without those like little subtle nuances.
Cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. And it was fun as someone who really likes film to see it be used in a video game. I was like, what a cool job.
Yeah.
Like I want to be a voice actor that does that. It looked really cool. As a part of the actual voice acting, I wanted to talk a little bit about the actors themselves because there are a couple interesting bits.
Yeah.
First, I want to talk about Joel. So Joel was voice acted by Troy Baker. And the fun thing that I just want to note about him, because it is just, it's weird, it's interesting. He is this tall, slender blonde dude.
Oh.
Yeah, like he's kind of pretty. Like he looks like he could be maybe not a model, but maybe a model. Like he doesn't look at all like what you would expect Joel to look like.
Whoa. You're right. He does he looks kind of like Bradley Cooper.
Exactly. Yeah, it's weird. He does not look like Joel.
No.
The other voice actors and actresses that I want to talk about, a lot of people were actually pretty well known when I watched them. I don't want to get in too much into each of them. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the voice actress for Tess. So today, unfortunately, before Maddie and I were going to record this episode, the actress Annie Wershing died from cancer, which cancer sucks.
Yeah.
She was the voice actress for Tess, and in the documentary that we watched, the role of Tess actually took a while to be cast.
Oh.
And some people, like Ellie, they knew right away, and then Ellie was in a ton of the other auditions. But a voice actress for Tess, they said as soon as Annie walked through the door in the first read, she was supposed to walk through as Tess, like in that first scene that Joel and Tess meet. They're like, oh, this is Tess. Annie is
nice.
Tess. Like the way that she carries herself, a strong female presence.
Yeah.
And also has this softness to her on stage. And they said that she was just an absolute light and an absolute joy. And so I wanted to call her out a little bit here because there are a lot of wonderful people that worked on this project. And it's always sad when we lose somebody that's super talented and
really young.
Really
45.
young, yeah. And so I wanted to make sure that she had her space here. And
yeah.
So the second voice actress I wanted to talk about was the actress that played Ellie. So it was Ashley Johnson, and I don't know if she's too familiar to you, but she also acts in other things as well. She's acted in other video games. And what I really found interesting about Ashley in this documentary and in all these articles I read, you'll see all this stuff about how The Last of Us was really a game that focused on these strong, complex, like, women characters.
Yeah.
Which, you know, like, I feel like we've probably talked about this before, that women in video games are kind of disappointing sometimes.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes they can be a prop.
They're either like a bitch or they're like a pushover or something. Like it's weird.
They play a role, but they're not like complex.
Yeah.
Sometimes I was actually thinking about how we were talking in the Somerville episode about how the dog was a prop that just followed you around. I was a little worried Ellie was going to be that, if I'm being honest with you. But before the game was actually released, they did these early reads to audiences on like, hey, here's the concept of the game. Would you play it? And the main feedback they got from people was that this game sucks. No one wants to play it. Nobody wants to like tote around a 14-year-old girl. And the only reason that it got made is because the PlayStation people were like, no, I think it's going to be good anyway. Do it anyway.
Yeah.
But like everybody hated it. And so when you see all this stuff and hear all this stuff about how strong Ellie was and how complex that she was, along with the other women like Marlene, like Tess, they have this bit in this documentary where they're talking about the very first scene that Ashley shot as Ellie. It was a scene where she was getting yanked from a car and Joel had to come and save her. And during this scene in the original writing, Ellie was just supposed to like wait. Like she was just supposed to wait around before like Joel came in and helped save her. And Ashley shot it a few takes and then was like, this is wrong. I would hit him. I want to hit him like Ellie would hit him. And apparently Ashley pushing back on the fact that Ellie was just waiting around there to be saved, kind of like a prop, they rethought a ton of scenes after that point with Ellie in it to be like, no, you're right. She would play a more active role and she would be a lot more of an aggressive, not in a bad way, but, you know, like she would play a lot more of this active role in the actual gameplay there. And I really appreciate and wanted to give a shout out to Ashley, the actress, by defining this part of Ellie. And I'm sure that like the writer, Neil Druckmann, who I mentioned earlier, I'm sure that he deserves some credit because there were a lot of strong women in this game. But part of me does wonder, like, what was Ellie supposed to be like? What would she have been like if it wasn't
that's really
Ashley?
Interesting.
Yeah, because it seemed like she brought so much of who Ellie was into the character.
Yeah.
And it just reminds me of why we need women in the first place to be in these spaces, because they help create that. And so, I don't know. I really appreciated Ashley after that. I know. It was just, it's
that's
fun.
really cool.
Yeah. There's a lot more that I could talk about. I think a lot of it requires context of the game, so I was just going to sprinkle in some fun facts.
Ooh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, based on all that kind of fun stuff. So The Last of Us, I kind of mentioned this earlier, ridiculously high reception.
Totally.
95 on Metacritic with a 9.2 user score. It was nominated for 13 DICE Awards.
Did it win Game of the Year?
It did win Game of the Year. It won 10 of the awards, actually, 10 of the 13.
Oh my gosh.
And then it won Game of the Year and a ton of other reward show also. Like, it was just, it did great. And the majority of the reviews that I read were all pretty much the same, being like, wow, this is an amazing game. Everyone should play it. Depth of the world was amazing. Mm-hmm. The narrative and the characters, how the story was laid out, was all something that just like blew people away.
Yeah.
The very few criticisms which I saw, which again, like the people that were criticizing this game still gave it like an 8 and a 9 out of 10. Like this wasn't like a we hated the game. This was like, this was an amazing game. Here's maybe the one nitpicky thing.
Yeah.
And it was mostly the AI and how it ignored your companions. So like when you were playing with Ellie, she would like run into the dude and he's like, I can't find them anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it
but
was
that's
mostly
good
that.
though.
I think the gameplay would have been impossible if you also were getting like stuck anytime Ellie was doing something dumb. I think that was the main critique I saw, was just like, hey, it kind of took me out of it when
I get it.
Yeah. Which
but also
But again, they were giving it 9s and 8s, so it wasn't like they were saying Yeah. So anyway, I'll read one review that I think captured the spirit of all the other ones that I read. A gripping story about human survival and the reignition of love in a bittered heart. The voice acting is perfect, facial animations are top-notch, and the protagonist becomes a very real person as the story progresses. The graphics are pretty much the best current consoles can offer. The art direction can best be described as dreary, perfect for a post-apocalyptic setting. I also love the sound design and the minimalistic soundtrack, producing melancholic instrumental music that really gets you in the right mood. The story is thrust forward using in-game dialogue sections, cutscenes, and various items you find, such as pamphlets and notes. Overall, the fiction feels very real, thrillingly able to suspend my disbelief with the mature story.
Wow.
Yeah, which I thought was nice.
They did our job.
Yeah.
Okay, podcast over.
Bye. Thank you, guys. Just kidding. You're
That was it. There's the breakdown right there.
But yeah.
Beautifully worded.
Yeah. So I hope to sprinkle some more fun facts because I've got them. But
yeah,
let's start talking about it. Why don't we do first impressions, Maddie? I think you're up.
Okay. So my first impressions, to give context, the only thing I knew about The Last of Us was that there was a character named Joel, there was a character named Ellie, and the game was about the two of them, and they were like battling through like a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, that's about what I knew.
I didn't really know anything else. And so the first thing that you start as is Joel's daughter, not Ellie. And so my first impressions was, this girl is not Ellie. And I think she's probably going to die.
So sad.
And this is very intense. I really liked the daughter character. They, in such a short amount of time, you really connected with her. And I thought they did a really good job of doing that, and also setting the scene of kind of things devolving in the span of like a single day. And it was just very well done. I don't know. It was just very well done. And yeah, that opening was just woof, heart-wrenching.
Yeah, that was identical. I was confused. I didn't think that Sarah was going to die. I just thought that I was confused because I was like, I thought she looked different. And so I was confused a little bit because I was like, really? Oh, okay. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, this feels weird. And then as the time went on, I was like, oh, okay, this is going to end pretty poorly. But it was also so beautiful. The scene they had where you drive by a farmhouse on fire.
Oh, yeah,
yeah. It was just,
very
I was
cinematic.
in a movie.
Yeah.
It was so good. And you're totally right. Like, it reminded me of how I felt when I watched Up. Just like so quickly, so efficiently get you connected to the characters and get you sobbing like right away. And man, they nailed it. Like, right away.
Yeah, they did. Also, they're in Texas.
Oh. Which is important for you.
And I'm from Texas, so, have to shout that out.
I will say the music, too, right off the
bat.
Oh,
so good.
Yeah, and here I'll sprinkle in my first fun fact. The composer, Gustavo, doesn't know how to read or write music.
What?
Yeah. He plays all of the instruments. He just plays them. He doesn't know how to read, write, or music.
Whoa. Okay, that wasn't the fun fact that I had. So we have different fun facts.
It wasn't great. Well, you can give your fun fact. But I just thought that was so cool. And like in the documentary, they showed him playing all these different instruments. And they were all crazy cool instruments. And he just doesn't know how to read or write music. And I love that so much.
That's so wild.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so wild.
Yeah.
Cool. I wanted to chat a little bit about this scene right before where Sarah dies, because I thought it was a really interesting depiction of like military men following orders.
Yeah.
So in the game, if you haven't played it, essentially what happens is Sarah, Joel, and Joel's brother, Sarah is Joel's daughter, and Joel's brother, Tommy, are trying to just get out of the city, and shit is just going down. There's zombies everywhere. There's explosions everywhere. There's people running all over the place who aren't infected. And it's just like a madhouse. And they finally come upon a river and they run into a guy who is in the military. And he tells them to stop. And they're like, oh, like, we're not infected. We're not infected. We're not sick. And then the military guy is just like, keep your hands up. And he gets a thing on the radio and he's like, yeah, we have 2 civilians, a dad and his daughter. And then he hears something and he's like, can you repeat? hears something again, and he's like, "Sir, she's just a kid." Repeat, "Okay, heard it," and then he shoots them.
Yeah. What I was thinking about for this one was the officer at the time were trying to build up this like quarantine zone and keep the infected in. And if they let them out, you're going to go off and you're going to spread the infection. And so even though they said, I'm not infected, I mean, like, shoot, we just lived through a pandemic. Like, you know how many people got on those stupid airplanes and so
that's so true.
You know, and so when they say, like, I'm not infected, and you're seeing how bad this infection is, and they're saying, like, but you could be, and you look like you're going to try and run, so we're just going to shoot you anyway. And so I saw it as a, like, the military was pretty much saying, like, nobody's leaving, and we don't know if they're infected, so we're treating everyone like they're infected, is kind of what I had assumed. Which, to me, sucks, because at the end of the day, like, they made the choice that was, quote-unquote, the good for the many, right, to keep the infection in. Infection still got out. She wasn't infected, and he wasn't. So it was a total waste of life.
Totally.
When life is so important in this, like, universe. And, you know, he made a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then the next thing that happens is it just cuts, and then it's 20 years later. That also just surprised me a lot. I wasn't expecting a time jump of that nature. I kind of thought there wasn't going to be. I don't know, because I hadn't played it, but then, like, the big, bold, like, 20 years.
I was happy there was a time jump.
Yeah, no, I thought it was good. Yeah. I thought it was good. I just wasn't expecting it.
I was afraid, and this is going to sound kind of bad. I don't really like The Walking Dead. And The Walking Dead is a lot more of that, like, if they hadn't done the 20-year time jump, you know, as they, like, kind of learn how to deal with it and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And so I liked that it was 20 years later, because you got to see what 20 years of this pandemic had done to the world, which I thought was so much more of an interesting take for me, because I feel like we've seen a lot of the, like, oh God, the zombies are happening now stuff. So I really liked it. Once you actually do the 20-year jump and you start to play the game, there's a couple of key things that you're doing. So you are smugglers. You and Tess, which we'll, like, meet and talk about here right at the beginning. Key gameplay, which was also very surprising to me, is it's not like a typical shooter game. So you don't run around and kill hordes of zombies constantly, or hordes of infected, sorry. It's very much so a stealth game, and the game is designed to make you choose how you want to play and make you feel the, like, anxiety of living in a world where you don't just have everything.
So much anxiety.
And so the kind of main mechanic, it would be, like, regardless of what you're trying to do at the time, you don't have anything. And you find, like, scraps of alcohol, scraps of, like, little sharp things like scissors, and scraps of different things you can use to make bombs and healing stuff and whatever else. And you get it very sparingly. And you get that stuff just as sparingly as you get, like, bullets. Yeah. And so you have this mixture of, as you play the game, should I shoot down this zombie horde? But I only have 16 bullets. Can I kill them all in 16 bullets? And what if I need those bullets later? And so a lot of the actual gameplay style is sneaking, which I didn't expect or anticipate, but I really liked it.
Yeah, I did too. I guess just to add on to that, you and Tess are smugglers. You go kill some random dude named Robert, who has no meaning.
No meaning. Yeah. He's whatever.
Then you meet Marlene, who is the leader of the Fireflies, and through some cutscenes and such, you get an idea of this organization called the Fireflies, who are revolutionaries in this world who want to bring back democracy and restore kind of government functions to society. Whereas now it's just under complete military, like, not dictator necessarily, but, like,
they did
authoritarian for sure.
Yeah, they did that, whatever the thing is called. Like, there's an actual ruling you can do to, like, martial law. That's what it is. Yeah.
So it's just complete, like, military rule, and you meet Marlene, who's hurt, and she's like, hey, can you please deliver this girl to the research lab for me? I'm not going to be able to make it. And then that's when you meet Ellie. And then most of the beginning of the game is sneaking Ellie out of the militarized zone so that you can make your way to the other like Firefly people and meet up with them. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I agree. I liked the gameplay a lot. One of the things that I noted in the first, it's just very, very stressful. I was like, wow, I'm stressed. I'm so stressed.
I played really slow. Like, I did the thing. I really like stealth games, but I'll admit that I am probably the most boring person to watch because I just sit behind boxes and watch them do their full loop. And then I'm like, okay, great. I see the full loop. So then when they have their back turned there, I can go there and then I can do that. And then I'll notice that there's somebody else that might interrupt that loop. So then I'll sit there and I'll watch their loop. And
oh my gosh.
And so it took me a really long time to play because I like stealth more than I like shooting. Mm-hmm. And so I was a slow person, but I was really surprised that that's how much of what it was because I thought it was going to be shooting the whole way, but it really wasn't. Like, you're sneaking around the whole time.
Yeah. One of the first things that you do is with Tess and Ellie, you have to sneak through derelict office building.
Yeah.
And that's where it introduces your flashlight. And I thought it was really cool. Did yours do this where you have to
hit your controller?
Yeah. Okay, so for those listening, one of the really cool mechanics is you have a flashlight and you're in this dark building and it'll start flickering. Mm-hmm. And to get it going, you have to actually hit your controller into your hand. Yeah. Like you hit a flashlight into your hand to like get it going again. And I was like, wow, I'm immersed. This is amazing.
It was so cool, but so horrifying.
So stressful, yes.
At one point, I was sitting right in front of one of the main monsters with my stupid little flashlight looking at them, getting ready to attack. And then my flashlight went out when they're like staring me in the face. And I screamed. I thought it was a part of the game. And then I'm like, my flashlight's not turning back on. And then I like hit it on my hand and turn on.
They have the little controller.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh my god. But they also had a lot of other cool haptics too. Like, I don't know if it was just because I was playing on PS5 or what, because I've never owned a PlayStation before. But like when it rained, your controller did little rain plops on your hands, which was crazy to me. That was so fun.
Yeah.
And like when cars drove by, you got like the rumble on your controller, and I was like, holy shit. Like,
I will say PlayStation does a great job of integrating controller into gameplay.
Cool. And like the sound came out of the controller too.
That's what they're known for. They're much more known for as much as PlayStation. One of the things I don't love about it is that they're not very open. Mm-hmm. Like, we couldn't even play this on PC if we wanted to. It's not even out on PC, and most of their games come to PC literally like 10 years later. It feels like PlayStation focuses a lot more on the cinematic-y type stuff and immersive stuff. And so I did really appreciate that. And their controllers are known for advancing in the controller
department.
Technology. Haptics. Yeah.
I was so impressed. It was so cool. As we talk a little bit about moving through this early part of the mission, maybe we can talk a little bit about the world that Ellie's experiencing for the first time. So we're bringing Ellie out of this government quarantine zone on behest of Marlene. And this is the first time that Ellie's ever been out. And when she's out here, we start running into the main products of this pandemic. Yeah. And do you want to talk a little bit about like the different kinds of infected? Okay,
So when we first start at the beginning, there's two main kinds. There's runners is what they call them.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And those are your typical, they look like people, but infected like zombies. They run at you.
Yeah.
And they have sight and they're easier to kill.
Yeah.
And then you have your clickers.
Wait, hold on. I've been practicing this. We might have to cut this out because it might be too weird. But I was like, hold on. No, I can't do it anymore. Okay, in the morning, I have this perfect clicker noise because I keep making it. And Chris is like, oh my God, I'm literally going to kill you. I'm like, I can't do it anymore. One day, baby.
Morning voice. You need morning voice for it, honestly.
But they make this horrifying clicking noise. Horrifying.
Yeah, I wrote in really big letters, fuck clickers. Yeah. Like, just so you first meet them in the office building because they like dark. Like that's their thing. They only are kind of in dark environments, and so they're only inside. And essentially what they are is they're, instead of a face, it's kind of like a flower.
It's a fungi.
It's like a fungus. Yeah, exactly. It's a fungus.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a flowery fungus situation.
It like splits open the face.
It splits open in the face, and they make a clicking sound, and they don't see, but they can hear really well.
Yeah, like echolocation for bats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're harder to kill. And so normally the runners, for example, if you don't have bullets and you don't have a shiv, you can punch them still. Punching does not work on clickers. You cannot punch them. They will kill you.
Immediately.
You have to either shiv them or shoot them. And so there's an extra element of stress when you run into a pack of clickers because you can't just punch them.
Yeah.
If you're running low, it's very stressful.
At first, I thought, like, oh, the clickers aren't going to be that bad, because I was like, it's kind of nice that they can't see, because I can just hang out and I'll just walk slowly by. That's fine. I didn't realize the other cool, really, like, what the clickers do in their walking patterns is they'll walk and then they'll stop and they'll do this big like click screech thing, like in a random direction. And if they click screech and you're in like the radius of their click screech, like in front of them, they will echolocate you and sprint at you. So like you don't even have to be moving, you don't have to be making noise, they will still get you. And so it's not as simple as like, oh, they can't see, I'll just sneak around them really quiet. No, you have to make sure that the ones that can see don't see you while you sneak, that you sneak at a really slow pace so they don't find you. And then know the pattern of like, oh God, they're about to stop and do their big cackle. So you have to make sure you're out of the way, but you can't move quickly out of the way, because if you do, they'll also hear that. The amount of anxiety that builds.
So much.
And like, you have the clicks in the distance and you're like, oh God, it's coming.
Yeah. So there's one part at the end of the office building where it's a room full of them. Do you know which part I'm talking about?
No, probably, but
you're about to exit. You're literally almost to the exit. And Joel makes a comment of, we're almost there. And it's full of clickers. And you have to either sneak past them all or kill them all. And I'm going to be honest, I never got the sneaking down super well. So I had to end up clearing rooms like every time.
Oh, yeah.
I like when you mentioned that you have to sneak past them, I didn't know that that was an option. I thought I had to clear the room or I was going to die, because kept messing up in some way or another.
Yeah.
And so at this very end, that's when I had texted you, like, I just rage quit, because I had to restart that encounter.
So many times.
So many times. So the other thing about the game is you can't save at any moment. It's auto-saved at checkpoints.
Yeah.
And the checkpoints can actually be kind of far apart from each other, which is probably my biggest complaint of the game.
I had that too, yeah.
Because there was multiple times where I'd mess up at the very end and you have to restart all the way at the beginning.
Yeah, I had those a few moments like later that I did the same thing where I think there was one part where there was like 7 at a time and I killed all of them, and then there was a surprise thing later. I think I did that encounter probably like 10 times, and I couldn't figure out like what I was doing wrong before I finally beat it. And while I was doing that, that's when I figured out it was like not
the echolocation one.
Yeah, because I was like, oh, that's what I'm doing. Like I wasn't moving. I don't understand. And I also, at that point, like that was the first time I tried to like save and load without using the autosave, like to do a manual save, because I was getting so frustrated. I was like, okay.
And it didn't work.
No,
it'll restart you at the checkpoint.
So mad. I was literally like, Chris, can you beat this for me and take it? And he was like, no.
Rude. But also, I get it.
So I had to do it myself. That's fine.
So after you smuggle Ellie to the place that you're originally supposed to go to, you show up, everyone is dead. The Fireflies are all dead.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, Joel is like, oh shit, okay, well, we just got to go back, like this is over now.
Yeah.
And Tess is being kind of intense and being like, no, you have to continue taking her, because you learn, as you do this office thing, you learn that Ellie is technically infected.
Right. Yeah.
Which we didn't talk about yet. So there's a scene where they run into another military guy. He tests them all And when he gets to Ellie, she stabs him and kind of freaks out. And then, he dies because Joel kills him. And you look at the tester and she is infected.
Right.
But she's totally normal.
Mm-hmm.
And then you learn from Ellie that she was bitten by an infected person 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
And it looked almost healed.
Yeah. And for context, too, you'll find documents throughout the game that talk about the progression of this fungal disease. And the way that the disease progresses is literally you show symptoms in like hours. And within like a day, you are pretty much a runner. It's not a thing that 3 weeks is just totally unheard of. So it's not like it had a couple weeks, so maybe she still has symptoms to show. No, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tess is like, this might change the world. Like, she might change the world.
Mm-hmm.
And Tess is usually like Joel, very pessimistic, very just survival
business,
mode.
Very business.
And so this is the first time that you see Tess believing in something. So Joel takes it to heart. And then as they're leaving, Tess is like, no, I'm staying.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of know. And Tess was bit. And she's like, this is the end of the road for me. And the military's coming. And she's like, I'll hold them off. I don't want to turn into one of those. So I'll fight the military. So she stays behind and shoots a bunch of the military guys as you escape and continue the journey. And the next thing that you're going to do is find a guy named Bill who you used to work with as a smuggler.
Yeah. And before we get to Bill, one of the things that I wanted to talk a little bit about was the Tess and Joel relationship.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious your thoughts on it. When I first got the read of Tess and Joel, I thought that they were intimate. Like, I thought that they probably, similar to like when you've been married before, maybe for a really long time, and you don't want to get married again, but you don't want to be like alone, and how you want to have a partner. And
totally,
like that's kind of the vibe that I had.
That's the vibe I got
from
too.
them.
I got like long-term relationship vibes from them, for sure.
Yeah. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting about Tess and Joel, and a part of a little bit of like what I was reading, was that the Tess had to die to make Joel take Ellie further. When we think about the relationship that Joel has with Ellie and Joel has with Tess at like the beginning of this game, at this point I think we're like 2 or 3 hours in. We're not super far in just yet. He's very
transactional.
Yeah. Like, we are smugglers. We are doing this job. You might as well, Ellie, be an object thing that we're carrying over here, right? And when you're confronted with like, okay, he has to take her on alone, I don't think there's any way that Joel in that moment, without Tess dying, that he would have done that. Like,
and without her saying that, I think too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think even if she would have gotten shot by the military, like, I don't think he would have taken her. I think she had to get bit, and she had to believe that Ellie was the cure in order for him to take her. And I think there's no other way that Joel would have done it without Tess, I think, in that moment. Which I actually was worried that Tess was going to die immediately. Because I was like, something feels wrong. I don't know. Something felt off. I just thought something bad was going to happen to her, and it did.
Yeah.
But I do think it's really interesting that was the motivation that they chose for Joel, was for Tess, this one person that I think he kind of cared about, to have to force him to do it, pretty much, like, for her.
So now you go to find Bill, and this is when you get out of the city.
Right.
And the one thing I wanted to comment was just the environment. I thought it was just so pretty. The game was just so beautiful, and out in the rural grassland. I don't know. And why are you going to meet Bill again?
So at this point, you don't really know what to do,
Oh,
right?
and that's why you go to meet Bill.
Yeah, and so he has a car, and so you go to...
That's right.
You go to Bill because you're like, oh, we need a vehicle to get our way to Tommy's, because...
That's right, because Okay, so his brother Tommy, you learn that he had joined the Fireflies.
Yeah, like previously, a while ago.
Oh, like a while ago. And that was actually like why they kind of had a falling out.
Yeah, which we still don't understand the falling out. I don't think they ever explained it, really.
They kind of did.
Ish.
You know that Bill has a car, and you need a car to get to Tommy. Tommy had joined the Fireflies. That's why you're going to Bill.
Yeah. You're hoping that Tommy will be able to figure out where to take Ellie.
Right.
Yeah. Because, like, at the end of the day, you really don't know what to do now, right? Like, you're not a part of the Fireflies, and all the Fireflies that you're supposed to meet are dead, so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. So then you make your way to Bill. He lives in a very small town.
Yeah.
Well, obviously rundown town.
Yeah.
It is not populated. He has a bunch of traps set up. Like, that's his thing. He, like, is very much paranoid. And I wrote, I like Bill. And then immediately after, wait, maybe not. Because he was really mean to Ellie.
Yeah, he was. Like, they treated Ellie like she was a pill. You know what I mean? Like, she's a little brat is how they had kind of been treating Ellie. But I don't know.
But I still liked him.
I liked Bill because he felt like what I would expect people to be like. And he wasn't so selfish that he was a jerk.
Totally.
But you could tell that he was a little upset at you guys for causing shenanigans.
Well, you
at
set
the
off
place.
all of his traps.
Yeah. And actually, that's one of my favorite scenes of the game is he has a trap where he catches Joel by the ankle.
Oh, you liked this part?
Oh, I loved it.
I thought it was good creatively, but I had to replay that so many times.
Oh, okay. I loved it so much.
Okay, so for the listeners.
You play upside down. You're hanging upside down from this rope.
Because you get stuck in a trap.
Yeah, and like as you're doing it, these infected...
You have to shoot.
Yeah, are jumping through all the windows, and you're just swinging back and forth, trying to shoot as fast as you can, and I loved it. I'm sorry.
No, I thought it was good until I kept dying because of the clicker.
Okay, that's fair. I was so in love with it.
It was really creative.
Cool. Yeah, how creative. Yeah. I don't know if they'll do that in the TV show. I guess we'll find out. But man, it was cool. So you go to get the battery, and then you can only get the battery in the school. The school is the part that I had to play 5 million times, and I hated it.
Oh.
I hated it.
I didn't get stuck at the school.
I did. It was
with the
awful.
School buses?
No, after that.
Oh,
in the school.
in the school.
Yes.
I don't know why I didn't get stuck there.
I got stuck so many times. It was exhausting. I almost quit at that point, but I didn't. I kept going. But you want a battery. There's a battery theoretically at the school. Battery's not there. You go to the school. And then this is where we get the fourth type, or I guess third technically, but like the worst stage of infection is the bloater. Yeah. So this is where you meet a bloater for the first time. And there's these like grotesque, giant, fungal... armor, like their whole body is a fungus at this point because they've been alive with this fungus for so long, and this is the first time you meet them, and they're horrifying. Horrifying. Managed to kill it on my first attempt though. Still proud of that. Oh yeah.
I spammed Molotov cocktails.
Oh. Smart.
Fire was the trick with those things.
I just sprinted in circles and then every once in a while shot, and it just, I don't know how long it took me, but I did it. Nice.
Yeah. You go to the school, you defeat the first big bad thing, and the battery isn't there.
Battery's not there.
And then you go into town and you find a house, and you go into the house, and...
Did you find the note in the house?
Oh, let's talk about the note.
Okay.
So you go into the house, and it goes into a cutscene because you have found someone who has died by suicide. Joel's kind of like, oh, poor schmuck. And then Bill's like, that was my partner, Frank. Or like my previous partner, Frank.
Yeah.
And they had split, I guess, at this point. We're still living in the same town, but they had split. And you explore the house a little bit. You find that Frank had the battery. So Frank had the battery. You now have the battery, or the truck with the battery in it. And then if you explore the house more, you can find a note, and you read the note. It's so sad and also kind of funny. But Frank is pretty much...
Funny.
I mean, it is really sad. It's really sad. But Frank is pretty much like, I found the battery that you always wanted to find. Fuck you, Bill. I hate you.
Yeah, pretty. I actually took a screenshot.
Oh, okay. Okay, do it.
Because I won't have to read the whole thing.
Read us the note. No, read us the note.
Okay. Well, it says, well, Bill, I doubt you'll ever find this note because you were too scared to ever make it to this part of town. But if for some reason you did, I want you to know I hated your guts. I grew tired of this shitty town and of your set in your ways attitude. I wanted more from life than this, and you could never get that. And the stupid battery you kept moaning about, I got it. But I guess you were right. Trying to leave this town will kill me. Still better than spending another day with you. Oof. Good luck, Frank.
Oof.
Yeah. So, like, my hypothesis was that he got the battery and then in the school got bit.
Yeah. And then and wanted to off himself before he turned. Totally.
Yeah. That's kind of my hypothesis. But did you give the note to Bill? Because apparently you can do that.
Oh, I didn't.
I didn't either. I didn't find it until later when I was trying to get a screenshot.
Oh, I found it, but like I didn't know that you could give it to him.
Apparently, you get like an achievement if you give this note to Bill, and I don't think I would have done that because it was honestly it would have broken my heart if my ex-partner, who I just found that convinced I got this note. So like I don't think I would do it.
And like my partner, I think they were dating.
Oh, they were definitely dating.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah, because like later you find like Ellie has like stole stuff from Bill, and she found like a gay porno magazine. So like
yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I was gonna say like they were definitely like
sure.
Okay, partners in that sense.
Yeah. And so I would have been heartbroken if I would have gotten 100%. This note, but apparently you can give it to him, which is sad.
Does he say anything?
I don't know. Apparently he throws it on the ground, I think, and you can pick it back up, and that's how you get the achievement. In case achievement hunters out there are looking, but
okay.
Yeah, I assume that it would be a little heartbreaking, and Yikes. Bill already seemed heartbroken to see Frank there ending up in that fate. I think he probably kind of hoped a little bit that he had gotten out of the town, you know. Sad.
Okay. So after you get the car, you drive into a town and get wrecked by a group of
they're hunters. Is
hunters.
What they call themselves.
Okay, that's what they call them. Okay.
And we're in Philadelphia, I think, at this point. Yeah. Which actually, this is the first beef that I have to pick with this game, which is the fact that he drove into Philadelphia in the first place. Can anyone explain to me why you would ever go to the middle of a city if you were ever trying to like drive cross country? Like, I know that the road was blocked and he felt like he had to go there. I could not imagine a world where if I was trying to just get from point A to point B, I would ever make a detour in a big city, because that would be the most dangerous place to be.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And it didn't go well.
No,
it did not go well.
It didn't. And you see, as you're in this big city, okay, so you get kind of wrecked by this first group, and then you clear the group. Mm-hmm. And you start sneaking around, and you have a cutscene where there's an armored vehicle that is just wrecking shit.
Yeah.
And they're murdering innocent people, and they also have a dead woman like strapped to the front.
Yeah,
of
it's
it.
disgusting.
It was really gross.
Yeah. Very morbid.
They're very awful people, obviously, that are not infected.
Mm-mm.
And you're sneaking, and then you go into a building, and that's when you meet Henry and Sam.
Yeah.
And in the story, Henry and Sam are part of a group that also detoured into Philly to try to find supplies. Mm-hmm. And then the same group kind of made them all scatter.
Yeah.
And they were just trying to get out of the city to a radio tower to meet up with the rest of their group again. And Henry is the older brother of Sam, who is the same age as Ellie, pretty much. And they're really sweet. And I like them so much.
I think in my notes, I was like, oh my God, I love them. I love that there's another kid here.
Yeah. Because you finally get to see Ellie having moments as a kid with another kid. And that's when you also kind of start to see Joel's relationship, I think, kind of develop more into a father-daughter thing, because he's also happy to see her happy with another kid.
Well, and I think too, right before this, they had this really sweet moment of Ellie saving his life, I think, in the hotel.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was like right before that.
That's right.
Like, as
right
a part,
before that.
You went through the creepy ass hotel, which was the worst part of my whole existence. It was horrifying. And Ellie saves your life, and you don't say like Ellie saves Joel's life. Joel doesn't say thank you, but then eventually gives her a gun and starts to trust her with
more.
With the gun. And so I think what's so interesting about the Henry and Sam relationship and then the Ellie and Joel relationship is it seems like Henry doesn't trust Sam. He had a gun, but
not
he's like,
as much.
Yeah, he's like immediately like, not in a bad way, but more in like I really want to overprotect you way. Mm-hmm. And you get to see that dichotomy between Joel's just starting to trust and think that Ellie can stand kind of on her own in this environment, and Henry not really thinking that Sam can. It's very interesting. It's very complex.
Yeah. But they do have, like, Henry and Sam do have a really sweet relationship.
They do. I really liked it. Yeah.
Okay, so the one part of the Henry and Sam story I wanted to talk about is when you get out of the city finally and escape the armored car. The next thing that happens is you have to go through some sewers to get to the radio tower. And God, did I hate the sewers.
I wrote, why the fuck are we going in the sewer?
So you meet the next kind of thing, infected, that's a watery based.
They're not watery based.
Watery based. They're kind of around bodies of water. They're round bodies of water.
I guess technically the times that we meet them, they have been around bodies of water. I will give you that.
And I don't remember what they're called. Stalkers.
And
the thing that fucking sucks about them is they run like crazy and hide. And
then
Joel has so Joel has an ability where you can do like a super hearing and it outlines bad guys. But with the stalkers, if you do the super hearing, it does not outline them. And it sucks because then you come around a corner and you think it's clear and whoop, there's a scary dude. And the other thing that I hated about them is they would run away from you and hide. And then you're like, oh my God, where did they go?
Well,
and it's so stressful.
If you looked away too,
then they would run at you.
Yeah. Oh! It is awful.
Okay. Yeah. So there's, and also the story behind the sewers was really sad. So as you explore the sewers and you're trying to get out of the sewers with these awful water infected stalkers, you start picking up notes and you find that there was this guy who was out at sea. Did you find all of the notes?
I found most of them about Ish. But...
So there's a boat outside the sewers. You look on the boat, there's a note that says, okay, I'm finally coming back in because I'm out of supplies. I wonder what the world is like.
Yeah, I did find that one. And I was like, oh.
Go into the sewers, you find a little bed and another note that says, okay, I'm going to hide out in here. I can defend it pretty easily because there's not very many openings. And, you know, this feels like a good place. And then you find another note that's like, oh, I met some other people that weren't trying to kill me. And I invited them to come stay with me because if, like, what is life if you can't share it with people? And so they had this whole commune in the sewers. And then as you uncover it, infected got in.
There was a note, I think, once you get out of the sewers that talked a little bit about it. Yeah.
Well, because a few of them went for supplies.
Yeah.
And forgot to lock
the door.
And an infected got in and got all of the other people, including kids.
Yeah. They even had like a little kindergarten.
They had a nursery in the sewers. And you find the last note of one of the adults that was protecting the kids that was like, they're at the door.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Oh, you didn't see that one?
I missed that one.
It was in the room that had the dead kid bodies.
Did I find the dead kid bodies?
It was like very sad.
So I remember I was heartbroken when I saw like the little school that they had set up with all the toys. I don't know if I found all of the dead kids.
So it was like a bunk room. So it had a bunch of bunk beds, like where the kids had been sleeping.
See that. That's so sad.
And there was an adult skeleton and then 2 little kid skeletons. Anyways, I thought the world building in that way was so good. And I'm just the kind of person, my brain, I need to pick up all the things.
Yeah.
And read all the things.
I really love doing that.
I really liked how deep the world got when you did that. It paid off. Whereas sometimes I feel like games will do notes and stuff, but they don't pay off as much.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
I will say the other game that I really liked where the notes pay off a lot is Horizon Zero Dawn, which you haven't played yet, but read the notes in that game.
Yeah, I was very impressed with the amount of information you got from the notes. And actually, way earlier in the game that you find that references a person you're supposed to meet that I think was talking about Frank, too. Never coming to meet him in the city. So, like, there are little Easter eggs and stuff, like, in them, too, about the different characters. The note system was really interesting. It made it very worth it to want to find them.
Totally.
Yeah.
You're finally chilling. You made it to the radio tower. there's a really sweet moment where Henry and Joel are bonding. Sam is in his room, essentially, and Ellie goes to check on him. And they have a really interesting discussion about religion.
And fear
and what you're scared of. And Sam is kind of asking Ellie, hey, so my brother said that once people get infected, you know, they go to heaven pretty much and they're in a better place or whatever. Do you believe that? And Ellie's like, no, not really. And they kind of have a moment, and Ellie gives him a toy that he had eyed earlier, but his brother made him put down because they have a rule that you only take what you need.
I was waiting for so long for her to get him that toy because I watched her pick it up.
Yeah.
I waited.
It was
I
so
refused
cool.
to leave because she was standing by the toy and she didn't pick it up. And I was like, I'm not leaving this room until this girl picks up this toy, because if she doesn't pick up the toy because I did something wrong, I'm going to die. And so I watched her pick it up. And so I've been waiting this whole entire game for her to give him this toy.
And then she finally gives him the toy, and then she leaves to go to bed, and he throws the toy on the ground.
Yeah.
And you're like,
which broke
something's
my
up.
heart. Yeah.
Something's up. And then you wake up. Sam has not come out of his room, and Henry and Joel are also, shooting the shit again, making breakfast. And Ellie's like, oh, where's Sam? And Henry says, go wake him up. I let him sleep in. And she walks in, and you see Sam twitching. And he turns around, and he has been infected and is full infected. Starts to attack Ellie. And they kind of stumble out into the room. And then all of a sudden, Henry's like, holy shit, my brother, obviously. And Joel is like, he's gone. We have to kill him. He's attacking Ellie. And then Henry points a gun at Joel and is like, don't kill him. That's my brother. That's my brother. And then
he quickly shoots his brother.
And then he kills himself. It was so sad. I got so sad.
I was completely distraught. I was sobbing, and I stopped. I stopped playing that day there because I couldn't keep going. There was so many
well
layers.
Acted too.
Yeah. The thing that stood out to me a lot, the sniper fight right before, you are met with a moment where you have killed a sniper and then are looking through the sniper's gun as Henry and Sam and Ellie are down there getting overrun, and you're trying to shoot things and things are attacking them, and both Henry and Sam are being attacked by an infected, and you choose to shoot one of the infected, and then Ellie kills the other a second later. And when I chose to shoot the infected, I tried to shoot the infected one on Sam, but I missed. And then Ellie goes and kills them. And then I kept wondering if Sam got infected because I missed the shot. I was the reason that Sam was the one who had got bitten. And it turns out that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it even if you kill both of them before they overrun them, Sam still ends up appearing bitten later. But I had this distraught moment at the end of that where I was oh God, what have I done? And it was just such a tragedy. It was a tragedy.
Yeah. Now in the story, you finally get to where Tommy is. It's like, yay, we found Tommy.
I know. I was like, oh, thank God, he's right here.
TG.
They even had a little high five right before they got there.
Yeah. And you learn that Tommy got married, and that was very cute. You find them at a power plant.
Right. Yes.
And they are trying to get this power plant going again to have electricity and build a little town with electricity again.
Right.
And have this little commune. You learn that he left the Fireflies, but not in a bad way, but just...
He was done.
And this is where I wrote, you can pet the dog.
I know, me too. I was like, I can pet the puppy and you get an achievement for it.
Yeah. So you get to pet the dog. They have dogs. They have horses. That's the other kind of cool thing is they have horses. You can also pet the horse.
Yeah, you can pet the horse.
The thing that was giving me so much anxiety is because everyone that we have met has died. And I was like, I will quit.
If Tommy
dies, I will quit this game.
I was worried. I was definitely worried. Yeah.
What did you want to talk about with this section?
This section I thought was interesting because you get the glimpse a little bit into Joel and Tommy's relationship.
Yes.
You can see that Tommy is a great brother. You know that they've had a falling out, and when he comes and sees Tommy just pulls him into a hug.
100%.
To be totally honest, in this like chapter of the story, I hated Joel the whole entire time.
Really?
Yes. You didn't? I hated him. He was an asshole the whole time. And I know why. And we can talk about the psychology of Joel because it's very complex. But he's a dick. Like,
yeah, he is. You're right.
Tommy. So one of the things that Tommy does right when you get there is he gives a picture, an old like soccer photo or something of
Joel
and Sarah. Daughter. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he gives it back. Joel gives the picture back to Tommy and he doesn't take it. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Yeah. I'm like, why would you keep it?
I actually just thought that was really sad. I was like, wow, he can't even. Dude needs a therapist.
Yeah. It was. I'm curious your thoughts because like this felt really not closed to me, but maybe you understood more of what was going on. But like I couldn't figure out if it sounded like Tommy and Joel were together in Boston where you start the game. And Joel protected Tommy for a long time, and then they had the falling out, and Tommy went to the Fireflies. But that's really all I understood out of that.
I think the falling out was because Tommy went to the Fireflies. Oh. And Tommy look what he did. He, like, made another town with power, right? Yeah. How cool is that? Tommy was trying to do more with life and trying to make life better, and Joel was surviving.
Yeah.
They had very different outlooks, right? And I think Tommy was like, I have to believe in something more than just surviving. Yeah. Life needs to be more than that. And Joel was more, it's just gonna fucking suck and we're gonna survive. Okay. And didn't try to make anything more of his life. And that's what I had pieced together their falling out was about. Tommy was like, you're holding me down, you know, like, you're holding me down and this isn't a way to live. And I can imagine Joel in that state of having the amount of loss that he had experienced, probably lashing out about it. Yeah. That's my guess as to what happened. Yeah. That's what I had kind of put together.
I think that makes sense because he starts to lash out in this scene too, like back at Tommy. He pretty much tries to pawn off Ellie onto Tommy, and he uses the excuse of, hey, you used to be a Firefly, you'll know this way better than I would, she'll be safer with you. But really you can tell that I think a little bit in part of we just saw like the loss of Sam and Henry. I wonder if it reminded him a little bit of losing Sarah. Yeah. And I think he might have panicked a little bit and was like, oh my God, I can't take that kind of loss. Like, I don't know if I could have done it again. And so I think that was him putting up a lot of walls.
Totally.
But he even lashes out to Tommy while he's doing this and getting angry. So he's got a lot of anger.
Yeah.
I think.
Really quickly, one thing I want to mention from a character development standpoint is after the Henry and Sam thing, when you cut to, they're walking in the woods on their way to Tommy's, and Ellie's like, come on, I want to talk about it. And Joel's like, no, we're not talking about it. Bad stuff happens. Yeah. You get over it.
Do you remember the scene where if you can find a grave while you're walking to Tommy's, and she wants to put the toy on the grave?
Exactly.
Yeah, because she's like, I never got to bury Sam, and he's like, no.
Yeah. So he like completely shuts down any type of confronting of feelings or talking about feelings that we'll talk about later because it changes.
That's his arc.
So then what happens is Ellie runs off because she kind of hears some of the conversation. It's like, Joel's trying to leave me, and she gets upset and runs off. And then Tommy and Joel go try to find her. You have to fight dudes to try to find her, and you find her. And at the end of that, Joel makes the decision to take Ellie with the horse and not have Tommy go.
Yeah. Which I'm glad that he made that choice.
And I thought it was a really sweet moment because it also showed, like, even in the course of going to rescue Ellie, I think he had a moment of like, oh, I do care about this girl, and
after he says, you aren't my daughter,
I know.
Face?
Yeah.
Like, I was so mad at him. Yes, he ended up taking her, but like, he goes to go rescue her, and then they get in an argument, and her biggest fear is being alone, and she's like, I can't be your daughter, and he's like, you aren't my daughter. Yeah. And I don't know. I was mad at him.
Yeah,
He's an adult.
I mean, but then he kind of has a moment of growth and he's like, I'm going to take her.
Yeah.
And Tommy goes back to the power plant and back to his wife.
I will note it was really funny to me that when he decides to take her, he didn't stay the night in the really nice, cute little town that Tommy had made. Like, it would have been so much more comfortable.
No, they have to go then,
no,
right then
immediately,
and there.
right there.
And then you also get a horse, which is nice.
Yeah.
And what you're doing is you're making your way to a school because apparently the school has a science lab, which is where the Fireflies are supposed to be.
Right.
That you're supposed to be meeting up with. You get to the school, you start walking around, and the school is so pretty. Everything is so pretty.
It had pretty mountains. It just looked like a college campus.
I know, but it was like really pretty. It was like reclaimed by nature.
Yeah.
And it had a big fountain in the middle of the square.
With monkeys running all over it.
Monkeys. And that's also where you get the flamethrower, my fave weapon.
Really? I never used it.
You never used it? Dude, it was a lifesaver.
I used it like twice, but I couldn't get the hang of it. I couldn't figure out
you
how
know
to use
how
it.
there was in the school, you get to a room that's full of infected?
So I did. That was the only time I used it. That's the only time I used it.
You just wreck them.
Yeah.
And then you get more canisters. I never ran out of canisters.
Oh.
Because the zombies kept dropping canisters. We'll get to that in a little bit. The next thing that happens is you go to the school. You find out that the Fireflies have abandoned this school. Of course. Yeah. You read a note from a guy who had also shot himself.
And listen to tapes. This was a cool mechanic that they had here.
That they introduced. Yeah. I have a complaint about that, though.
Oh, okay.
Well, okay, I'll just say it. For some reason, the audio wasn't mixed well. I could barely hear the tape recorder. I had to turn the volume up so much, and it was the background noise. I wonder if something was messed up with the file. It literally felt like something was wrong.
Okay.
Like, actually wrong.
Yeah.
Because
For what it's worth, I could hear it totally fine, so maybe it was just a weird thing with that version of it.
Every time the recorders came up, you could hear it fine?
Yeah, it's totally fine.
Yeah. I literally couldn't.
That's sad because I really loved the recorders. I thought they were such a fun mechanic.
I'm really bummed. Yeah. I could not understand. I gave up because I couldn't understand them.
They had a lot of really interesting information in them too. I'm so sorry.
I'll have to look up a YouTube video.
I had weird bugs too. Like for me, the main menu prompts, when it was supposed to select stuff, like as I'm going through them, it didn't show which one was selected. Like it was the world's smallest tint of color change. So it went from like off-white to normal white.
Oh, God.
And I would be sitting there like squinting, looking at it and being like, which one am I selecting? I swear to God, Chris was probably so mad at me because I was constantly like yelling about the fact that I'd almost overwritten my save file.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I had almost done it because of shenanigans with I didn't know if I was pressing yes or no because it wasn't highlighted.
So then what happens is all of a sudden in the school, there's people shooting at you because they're
very
also
sudden
yeah, very sudden, and they're also they're raiding the place for supplies too, right? And they're shooting at you, and you kind of clean them out, except at the very end some dude comes out of nowhere and Joel gets pushed out a window and falls onto
they're one of those concrete, the rods in concrete.
Like a rod.
Yeah, those structural concrete rods.
And it goes all the way through.
All the way through.
All the way through him. And I had to suspend my disbelief here. How did he not die?
He would have died. There's no way he wouldn't have died.
100%.
Yeah.
His stomach had a rod sticking out of it.
I guess if you miss every single organ.
So he got really lucky and missed every single vital organ as well as his spine.
Yes. I mean, it definitely was off center.
Yeah,
so
it was.
fair.
It was. But anyway, very, very lucky. And I assumed that he would have to die. And I kind of thought that maybe it would be interesting if he did die at that moment and she had to go on alone. Yeah. Ooh, that would have been interesting.
I know. But no, he did not die.
No, he didn't die.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to, so as you've been playing the game, each of these kind of bigger chapters are seasons. They're marked by seasons. So you were in the fall and now you're in the winter. And it cuts to winter. And you're now Ellie.
Yeah. I loved playing as Ellie.
Yeah, I thought this was really cool. introduced a whole new element of stress, though, because at this point you've kind of upgraded Joel a bit.
Yeah, and you have nothing now.
And now you have nothing as Ellie, except for a bow and arrow. And you get a scene of Ellie going hunting. Joel is obviously very sick. And as she's hunting, you find a deer, you kill the deer, and then you stumble upon 2 dudes who want to share the deer meat. And Ellie says, okay, well, I'll give you this deer if you give me antibiotics.
Right.
And you kind of know, oh, Joel's still sick. And it's been like a couple months.
Well, at that point, I wasn't sure if he was dead yet. So when she asked for the penicillin, I was like, oh, he's alive.
Oh, well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, I see.
Maybe you had made the assumption that he was alive still. Yeah. I had made the assumption that maybe he was dead, because the last that we saw of him before they cut to winter was he fell off the horse and was looking pretty dead. Yeah,
looking pretty bad.
Okay, so like there's a whatever scene. You end up getting overridden by people, and David...
Infected.
Yes. You get overridden by infected. And you have, as Ellie, stolen his gun. Turns out he had another gun the whole time, so he's just kind of like a liar.
And going along. He was going along with
with it, which is whatever. I don't know. I have many thoughts about this dude. His name's David. He talks so creepy. And he's actually voiced by the dad in Pretty Little Liars, Spencer's dad, which I thought was really funny. But he also does other voice acting and things that are way more important than Pretty Little Liars, but that's fine. Whatever. Once you actually like defeat it, whatever, you get the medicine, you find out the actual twist, which is you're sitting around this fire, you've gotten the medicine. He's like, hey, so turns out that the people that I had sent out looking for supplies run into some trouble, and they were killed by a man traveling with a little girl. And you're like, fuck.
He said, like, some crazy guy with a little girl slaughtered my men. And I was like, whoopsies.
Like, who, me?
Who, me?
But then he lets you go. He does. You get the medicine and you get to leave. Ish.
Well...
With strings attached.
But then they come looking after you.
They used you as like a tracking device, pretty much. They're like, where's she going? So they can find Joel. They want to take out Joel. They don't care about the girl. They want to take out Joel. Well, they care about one person girl. Cares about the girl.
David cares about the girl.
So he's a pedophile, right?
Yeah. Okay. 100%. Oh, 100%. Okay, so then what happens is Ellie gives Joel the antibiotics, and then you hear guys outside the house that they have been holed up in. Yeah. Joel is looking bad.
Real bad.
He's looking bad. He's looking not good. And she's like, okay, I got to get them away from Joel so they don't find him. So she runs and tries to go distract them. And I did write a note that in this scene, I didn't know what I was supposed to do.
Oh.
And that I thought I was supposed to be running away from them, but I think but then I ended up having to kill them all.
Oh.
Because I got stuck. I kept getting stuck. Like, I kept running out of places to sneak to that they wouldn't find me.
I ran really far away, went through like little tunnels and stuff, and then I circled back around and I killed like a handful of them, but I ran away from a ton without killing them. And then
you figured out the sneak mechanics better than I did.
I cleared out rooms for sure, but I usually cleared them out with sneaking. So what I would do is I would wait, sneak kill one, find the next position, sneak kill another. And so I would clear out rooms without using bullets. I had bullets the whole time because I never really used them unless I had to. I had been sneak killing everybody, which only allows you to use the bow or shivs, and that's like it.
Interesting. Our play styles are very different.
But you do eventually at the end. I killed them near the end, but I managed to run away from a lot of them.
I just had to kill all of them because I kept getting stuck. So then they catch you, right? Yeah. So then the thing is they catch you. You wake up as Ellie in a cell, and the lackey of David is chopping up a human.
Yeah.
Like it's a butcher. Like, tasty. Yeah. Yum, yum.
I mean, listen, maybe this sounds stupid, but like for all of the flaws of this group of people, I know that killing and eating people is wrong, but like if you had to choose between survival and starvation, desperate times, I can see that being more reasonable than of numerous things. It's not as it's like it's
Go
worse
eat
than the hunter.
leaves?
Go eat leaves is fun. And I mean, like, clearly there are still deer outside, so they can still be like hunting and shit. But I feel like I was expecting it to be more, which is why I thought he was also a pedophile.
Yeah. And then David walks into the cell.
Yeah.
There's a cutscene, and David is like, "You're special."
Yeah, and he like touches her hand.
And he touches her hand, and she kind of goes along with it for a second because she's really smart.
Yeah, I love
And
Ellie.
she tries to, I know, me too. I love her so much. And she tries to grab his keys to get out of the cell, but then misses. And she does manage to break his finger, though.
Yeah. And I love her line when you find out that she broke the finger. She's like, how are you going to explain that a little girl broke your finger?
Broke your fucking finger. Yeah.
I love that. And one of the reasons that I loved playing as Ellie so much during like this little stint in the winter is because you get a lot of Ellie's personality, like, and you get to see her super badass moments like that, where she's like, "No, fuck you, I'm breaking your finger." Like, I just love it.
Yeah.
So good.
Okay, so then what happens is Joel wakes up and is like, gotta go save Ellie. And so then you kind of bounce back and forth between Ellie and Joel. Joel's making his way to the town to go rescue Ellie. Ellie's rescuing herself, also trying to flee back to Joel.
Yeah.
And it kind of culminates in Ellie is hiding from David, who is walking around this restaurant that is currently on fire.
Yeah.
And you have to sneak behind him and stab him. And that's like a couple of times. And that's how you kind of complete that scene. But the one thing that I wrote here is, so once you stab him for a third time, there's a cutscene where she's trying to get to the knife. And one of my issues in general with this game, and so I don't know, do you want to talk about it now or?
Good. Yeah.
Okay. I just wish it would just do the cutscene. I hate the like button prompts. Just do the let me watch the cutscene.
Yeah.
I hate it.
That's interesting.
I hated every single one of I didn't like a single one.
Really? I kind of liked it.
No, I hated them.
I think I liked it.
Because you have to press triangle and she like crawls a little. And then you press triangle and she just crawls a little. And you're like, just fucking crawl. Just play the scene. And I'm trying to eat a snack. I'm trying to drink water. This game is stressful as fuck. Just let me watch the cutscene. Give me a fucking break.
Okay.
Give me a break.
Okay. So my perspective on it is I liked that I felt more interactive with what was happening. And there was something at risk if I didn't do it. And so, like, there are a couple moments later where the fact that you are supposed to be interacting is so interesting, the way that they did it. And I will say, normally I hate quick time events, but these are very forgiving.
Yeah.
I will say, though, that as someone who's never played on PlayStation before, the super quick time events, I was like, triangle. I was trying to memorize
the wrong buttons.
Yeah.
I mean, even I did that because I'm not used to I don't play it as much. So,
Yeah.
Okay. So you finally reunite with Joel. You kill David.
Super traumatizing kill. Oh my God. She was like swinging on top of him with a fucking whatever, his big knife thing. She's just like swinging and stabbing and swinging and stabbing. And it was horrible.
Okay. And then you go to Spring.
Yeah.
Spring. And you're finally almost to the place that you need to go to. So at that school previously, the guy who had shot himself, the Firefly, he said, okay, they all moved to this Utah hospital. So then you're making your way to the Utah hospital. That's where you run into the other things. So you're finally in Utah. And there's a scene that I wanted to talk about that I really, really loved. So what happens is you are in a building with Ellie, and all of a sudden she's like, oh my God, and she's running, and you're like, what? And you see a shadow of something, but you don't know what it is, and she's really excited about something.
Yeah.
You come out on this rooftop, and there's a giraffe just like eating leaves.
And it's beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah, mountains in the background.
And you
gorgeous.
just stand there and you talk to Ellie and you talk about your daughter with Ellie. And so it's such a change from, 2 seasons ago in fall with Tommy, where he was literally like, I don't want this picture.
Yeah.
And Ellie ends up giving you the picture. So she had taken it.
Yeah.
And you talk about your daughter with Ellie. And I just thought it showed like a lot of growth. And you look out and Ellie's just having a moment and you're having a moment with her. I just really loved it.
It was almost sad to me. I think that's what I had wrote down, is that I was feeling sad, and I couldn't place exactly why I was feeling so sad about the fact that they were there, but I thought it was a really interesting way that they did the storytelling, because you would think that in this moment you would be excited and hopeful that you were so close to finding the fireflies and to getting Ellie where she needed to go. And I just felt sad. Like, we had watched that traumatizing kill. Ellie seemed like she was acting a little bit off. And this is what I meant by the interaction moment that I thought was interesting, because, like, through the game, they have a lot of puzzles in it, and that was one of my qualms. Their puzzles were, like, really lame. Not in a bad way, but, like,
I wrote puzzles.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. They're just kind of like time wasters a little bit.
Yes.
And one of the mechanics that just happened over and over and over again is you pick up a ladder and then you put it on a wall. Yeah. Or like you find a place and you boost Ellie up. And there was a spot right before you get to the giraffe in the same like little bus area. And you press the triangle to boost Ellie up like always. And your little Joel character does his animation to like put his hands down for Ellie to put her foot in, and then she doesn't do it. And then you have to walk over to Ellie and be like, Ellie, come on, we've done this so many times. And I loved that, because the game told you that it was a thing that you've done a million times, and it was weird that Ellie wasn't doing it. And so like when we get to the giraffe and we're sitting there and we're looking at this beautiful landscape right near the hospital where you're supposed to be going, I was just like, I feel so sad. And I don't know why. I just felt sad. I don't know.
I get it.
Did you feel happy? Like, were you like content in that moment?
I
don't know why I felt so sad.
Really, I thought it was just such a touching moment in general. It's kind of like the Casey Musgrave song, Happy and Sad at the Same Time. You know?
Yeah.
I feel like that's the
melancholy
feeling.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I did get a feeling that because of how I was feeling so sad, I was like, what if the ending isn't a happy one? And that's why they're trying to make me feel sad right now instead of hopeful. And I wrote down, I'm afraid they're never going to let her leave.
So then the last thing that you're doing to get to the hospital is you have to go through the worst, scariest.
I didn't kill any of them.
Tunnel. Oh my God, what the fuck? I flamethrowered. What's the verb of that?
You thrown?
I flame-thrown that whole bitch up. I just was spreading fire. I was throwing nail bombs. I was throwing Molotov cocktails. I killed all of them.
That's so funny. I killed nothing. I was like,
so funny
this bus tunnel has so many fucking bloaters in it. I avoided all of them. I just walked around the sides and dodged them all.
How you did that? How you managed to do that?
And that was what was interesting about the game, is it gave you choices for how you wanted to tackle it.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to kill any of them because I was like, that stresses me out. So I just avoided them all.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. And you finally get to and then the last scene is you come upon some water that's very rushing. Joel falls in. Ellie tries to save him. Ellie falls in. Joel drags her up onto the shore and is giving her CPR. And they get found by a firefly guy. He's like, put your hands up. And he's like, I'm not, like, I have to save her.
Like with Sarah, it was like the same. Ugh.
I have to save her. I'm not going to let her die. Like, I'm not going to put my hands up for you. And then he, hits Joel. And you cut to the Utah hospital and you wake up as Joel, and there's Marlene again.
Which immediately put off alarm bells for me.
Okay.
Did it not put off alarm bells for you? The reason
No,
why...
I mean, she was supposed to be there.
She was supposed to be there, but Alarm bells went off in my head because I was like, why is she there so fast? All we knew is that, like, when you left, Marlene was, like, seriously injured and was going to need time to recover. And so in my head, it would have taken a non-trivial amount of time for her to do that. She had never mentioned that she was...
It had been almost a year, though.
Yeah, I guess I just assumed, since we were making the same trek, that she would have been months behind us.
But she knows more information than you, right?
And that's what I kind of connected later. But, like, my immediate gut reaction is, like, how did she get here before us? And it logics out, and it makes sense that she got there before us later. But it still, I was like... in my gut, I was like, felt weird.
Do you want to talk about it? You do this next part.
Okay. So you're in the hospital. Marlene's there. And again, how the fuck did she get here before us? That's fine. We are learning in this moment now that, you know, we made our goal. We ushered Ellie to the Fireflies like we were supposed to. And Marlene has the really tough job of talking to us about where Ellie is now. And so, of course, you're worried about the fact when you got, you know, hit in the head that you were giving CPR to Ellie. You're like, oh my gosh, is she okay? Did she live? And Marlene's like, don't worry about her. She's going to be fine. He's like, can I see her? And she's like, well, no, we're prepping her for surgery. Surgery. I can't speak to you guys. No, we're prepping her for surgery. And... then you learn the hard news, which is that in order to get the sample of the mutated cordyceps, the fungus that's growing in her brain because she got bit, that hasn't killed her yet, they have to remove the brain. And that's the only way to make the vaccine. I have many thoughts about this. We can talk about it later. At that point, you, of course, have the realization that Ellie's about to die. Joel is like, please, like, let me talk to her. And Marlene says no. She's like, no, you're not talking to her. You are lucky that you're still alive. You should leave now, pretty much.
Oof. And you should thank me that you're getting to leave.
Exactly.
Ooh,
like, it's
girl, no.
It's pretty much like you're welcome for, like, letting you leave here. And it's also confusing me because they don't give him his bag back or anything. So it's pretty much a death sentence to him anyway if he doesn't get his guns and supplies back. A soldier starts to escort him out, and Joel's like, you know what? Fuck you guys.
And I wrote, rampage.
Because you rampaged.
Did you not?
No, I did. I killed all of them.
Okay, you have
this time.
to, right?
Yeah. No, I killed all of them, but I did sneak kill most of them until the end. When we get to the big, long hallway, I did kill all of them. The AI in these scenes are so good, in my opinion. In a lot of the sneaking parts that I did earlier, you could kill, and it was pretty easy to stay undetected if you killed at the right angle. Even if there was someone kind of nearby, they considered, like, a sneak kill, quote unquote, like, silent. And so as long as you weren't in the line of sight, it was fine. But I don't know what it was about this scene, but even when I wasn't in the line of sight, they still, like, heard or knew that I was doing shenanigans. And so I had, like, piled up bodies in this bathroom that I kept luring them into by, like, throwing bottles and bombs and stuff. But they were way more advanced this time. It was a really hard fight.
Yeah. You get to Ellie. You have to kill the doctor.
I actually didn't mean to kill the doctor.
Oh, that you have to.
Yeah.
You're forced to.
Well, they had, like, he had picked up a scalpel. And I went to grab the scalpel. That's what I thought I was doing. But when you go to grab the scalpel, you stab him with it.
Yeah.
But I didn't mean to. I didn't want to. So, like, I had actually waited to be like, could I just get him to drop the scalpel and pick her up and leave? Because, to be totally honest, I didn't want to kill the guy who's going to save the world, right? If he could actually make the vaccine. But no.
So then you pick up Ellie, and then you have a very stressful time running through the hospital with Ellie. You get to the elevator. You go down the elevator to escape and see Marlene again.
Before we talk about what happens next, I feel like we should talk about a little bit the choice that Marlene has chosen to make and who Marlene is a little bit.
Yeah, because you find the notes and stuff.
Yeah, so one of the interesting bits, in my opinion, about Marlene, I'd love to hear kind of what you think about the path that she's chosen, is she knows Ellie. And you learn through conversations with her.
Really good friends
notes.
with her mom.
Yeah, she, like, knew Ellie. She was told by her mom to protect Ellie. And through these notes that you read, you see that she was, like, pretty torn up about the fact that the doctor said, hey, the only way this is going to work is if we kill her, pretty much. And she makes that choice. So I'm curious, like, how do you feel about Marlene's position?
It's interesting. I can understand it.
Mm-hmm.
I also understand Joel's position because it's also the chance for a vaccine. They don't know for sure, right?
Yeah.
And yes, you haven't found someone immune to this before. What about you?
So I had a hard time with Marlene a little bit because I think at first glance, I was like, I think I would behave like Marlene behaved. I think in the kind of world that they live in, you have to do everything you can to try and fix it. And I read some arguments on the internet about, well, they should have at least woken Ellie up and had her talk to Joel, had her like say it. Because Ellie, I think, would have said yes. I think she would have said do it. So I do think that she made wrong choices
Removed
selfishly.
the choice, though.
Yeah, but one of the things apparently that you can find, and I actually found this offline later, I didn't find it in my playthrough, that changed my mind, where there were a few tapes and notes left by the doctor. Did you see those?
Yeah, they didn't work though. Remember? I couldn't hear the tapes.
You couldn't hear them. Okay, so in the tapes, apparently, the doctor describes pretty much knowing fucking nothing about how Ellie's stuff works.
Yeah.
So they have Ellie there. They do a couple of tests, and they figure out that if you take out Ellie's blood and put it in like a petri dish, it grows the fungi, and they did MRI brain scans, and the fungus is all through her brain except for in the parts that control motor function and reasoning,
personality,
and all that kind of stuff. And so pretty much whatever her fungus
they're just cohabitating.
It's cohabitating.
Yeah.
So it's not dead. She's not immune to the fungus living in her body. It just has avoided the parts of like her controlling herself. I don't think that we'll probably want to go through all of it here, so I'm just going to say it now. But in the Left Behind like DLC, you learn that the thing that hurt Ellie also hurt her friend, and her friend died.
Yeah.
So it's not even that the thing that hurt her and bit her was special or mutated in some way. It's literally only Ellie, because the thing that bit her killed somebody else.
Yeah.
And so when you learn that this doctor had done these very small set of tests, and I mean, like, who kills their test subject the very first day that they get them?
Right?
That's just bad science.
Yeah.
But like the idea that he literally was going to dissect her brain to try and figure out why she was immune. It's not even like he had figured it out and knew that he needed to remove the brain. He was going to remove it because he literally didn't know yet and was hoping that would figure it out. And that's the worst reason I've ever heard in the history of the world. And the fact that they didn't fucking know, why would you kill the one immune person that you had in order to do that?
Yeah.
And so I had at first was like, you know what, Marlene, I get it. I would do that too. And I understand. But like, Jesus fucking Christ.
No.
Like what?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was really upset at Marlene after the fact. And like her sitting here begging Joel, like, no, please, we need this hope to save humanity, standing at the elevator. And she knew that it might not even work.
It might not even work.
And it wasn't even a small risk of not working, and they had a plan. They
probably
didn't even
wouldn't
have a
work.
plan.
It probably wouldn't work.
It wouldn't have worked, and they would have killed their only person that was immune.
Yeah.
So stupid. And do you want to talk about like Joel's maybe decision and what he was thinking?
I will say I identified more with Joel. I feel like in his position, although I did say, woo, that's a lot of murder.
Looks like he killed the human race there.
But I honestly, like, in this world, she was kind of what, like, she was the only thing that he had, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not a parent, so I feel like this game would probably hit so different if I was. But I know that your psychology and stuff is just wired in a way that you protect your kids at all costs.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Right? And that's just what his mindset was in, is I have to protect my kid, essentially. And I think it was the right choice, too. Because at the same time, like, they didn't give her a choice. They didn't ask. They didn't let him talk to her or say goodbye or do anything. And it's kind of fucked up.
It's super fucked up. Yeah.
And I get it. So I don't know if you had other thoughts, but
no, I think that I agree with you, and I think the thing that was so interesting to me was the choice he made. Had we didn't know that the doctors were apparently totally just like idiots.
Well, but you know that that's bad science anyways.
You know that it's bad science. I don't think he was thinking about the fact that the science was bad.
No.
Yeah, like
he wasn't.
He made
and we might be overthinking it too.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't know. I feel very correct here. It's fine. I think he made the right choice for the wrong reason.
Totally.
And I think he was right. But I don't think
wrong
that he
reasons.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Agree.
He wasn't doing it because he's like, this is clearly stupid. Who would kill this person as soon as they got them? Like, that's just dumb. But I'm glad that he did it.
Yeah.
Because I think it was right. I don't think they would have ever made a vaccine with Ellie dead. I don't think they would have done it.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I agree.
I also wonder how old the doctor was, because I was like, this has been going on for 20 years. Did he go to med school?
Who is this guy?
I was like, where are his credentials before we cut this brain open? Thanks.
You go down the elevator. Marlene's begging him. He kills Marlene because, well, he shoots her. And she's like, no, like, keep me alive. And he's like, you're just going to come after her, and fucking murders her.
Yeah, which, you know,
that
like,
scene was
brutal.
Yeah. Also true, though.
Yeah. And I mean, it shows how far he's willing to go to keep Ellie safe, right? It wasn't enough to get her out. It was enough to make sure Marlene couldn't come after her again.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And then it cuts to them going back to the town where Tommy is.
Thank God.
Oh,
thank God.
Best decision he's made the whole game.
I know. I was like, why'd you leave?
And they have a really good scene, the last scene, where Ellie stops him for a second and is like, so essentially what Joel says when Ellie wakes up, because she had been passed out, is he's like, oh, they actually didn't need you. They found multiple other people who weren't infected, and they didn't need you anymore, so we're going home.
Which he's fucking shitty for saying that. I still am mad at him for saying that.
Yeah.
It took away her feeling of being like, she thought her life had a purpose, and he pretty much just like took it away with one lie.
I don't think that. I think it's more just that at this point they had built up so much trust that it was breaking that trust a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know. It felt so sad that he would just take that away. I don't know.
I don't feel like he was taking away purpose. I think he was. I still just don't think that's how you parent. Avoiding things is not like the best.
Yeah, he doesn't have great coping skills.
No. She's like, swear to me that's true. And he's like, I swear. I was like, fuck. And the credits roll and you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
No!
Well, and she says like, okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's so much like behind that okay, and I still don't know what it means.
I don't think she believes it, but I think she wants to believe it.
Yeah, I think that okay is choosing to be like, okay, I'm just going to let it be okay, you know?
Yeah.
Because I think it would be too hard for her to live with being mad at him. I don't know. Maybe we'll find out in part 2 what was behind the okay.
I now want to play Last of Us Part 2. I'm like excited for it. And that's the end of the game. Okay, so things that I loved. The story. My God. Great story. The only critique I had on the story, which is interesting that you played it kind of different. I felt like it was forcing me to clear the room, as in like murder people a lot. And I kind of wish I didn't have to murder people a lot. So there's one scene in particular that I was feeling really yucky about where you come upon some guys in a convenience store and they're just chatting. And one of them's like, oh, I'm going to like cook you bacon. And the dude is like, oh, well, I've never tried bacon before. And he's like, oh, dude, it's the best. And then you kind of go and you murder them. And you're like, oh, well, that felt bad. Yeah. They're also just trying to survive, right?
Yeah. That's kind of how I felt about the whole group in Philly. I think all the hunters in Philly. Like,
well, but they had an armored car with like a woman strapped to it.
I mean, some of them obviously were terrible people, but I'm sure there were people in that group who were literally just like trying to live.
Well, Philly is where that convenience store was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The music was great. I really enjoyed the gameplay. I think that purposefully making resources scarce added so much to the feel of it. I thought it was, but it was a right balance. I thought it was the right balance between finding stuff and not finding stuff.
Yeah.
There wasn't a moment where I felt like quitting the game because resources were so scarce.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I have played Resident Evil where I felt that way, where I was like, are you kidding me?
Did you play on moderate? Like the
Normal.
default one? Yeah.
Yeah,
okay,
normal.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Because I know that the item drops vary based on the difficulty level.
Oh.
Yeah. And so on the moderate, I also played on moderate, and I agree with you. The drops to me felt like a super nice balance. But apparently the higher you play, the less drops you get. And
that
probably,
makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm. And then the graphics were really pretty. Mm-hmm. So I loved the art design, I guess, and the music together to create the atmosphere.
You'll have to look at some of the comparisons between the remastered and the part one.
I'm super interested. It was like gorgeous. On the remastered one was gorgeous. I can't believe that was made in 2014.
Yeah, one of the things that stood out to me based on, I tried to look at before and afters of some of them before I bought it because I just wanted to see how different it was. And it looked like so much was the character model and then the lighting were like the two really big ones, because lighting is like super computationally expensive in like 3D games. And so the advancement in tech really helped with make the lighting a lot more interesting.
Cool.
And so there are a few scenes where you can see like before and afters of the ambient lighting, because the game was mostly ambient lighting because there was no electricity anywhere. And you can see like the difference between like this harsh kind of light just shining on the whole thing versus really like nice depth of like shadows and stuff over different elements of it. So you should take a peek at some of it because it's really beautiful.
Yeah. Okay, what did you like about it?
So one, I thought that the depth of the story and the depth of the characters and the character arcs themselves, I loved. It really did feel like I was watching a movie.
Yeah. And
the fact that they ended up making the TV show about it, I 100% see why they did that, because literally playing it, I was like, I'm in a movie right now. And so that's like my number one, and just the writing, the execution of the voice acting, the subtle nuance of the acting. None of it felt like a video game. And I say that with the highest praise possible.
Yeah.
Like, so many of the games that you watch the cutscenes, it's like really robotic, and you can just tell that you're watching a video game while it's happening. The other kind of things I liked were we talked about it a little bit earlier, but the additional flavor that they gave to the world around it. It really felt like the world was a character. You see how nature has overrun it. And I read some article, I'll make sure that I can dig it up so that we can link it. I think it was an article, maybe it was a documentary, that they actually used a book, that actually maybe I can find the notes on, but they used a book to base their reasoning behind the nature overrunning the world, and how
like
it would
actually
do it.
like
it was actually like thought through on how would nature impact the world. Oh yeah, here it is. The World Without Us was the book that inspired it. And it was in that documentary. But apparently what it talked about was how in New York City, the water they pump out of the subway like every day. And so when you all of a sudden don't have those systems in place anymore, everything floods because they're not pumping the water out anymore. And then when things flood, it starts to like create cracks and like foundations, and then plants grow through those. And then once those plants grow through, then the sinkholes fill with water, and then the sinkholes fill with water, and then the buildings topple over, and then they, and so there's like this whole ecosystem that they have thought through on like, why did that brick building lean to the left and like fall out the way that it did with the plants growing there. And so much thought. Exactly. You could tell how much love that the creators and every single aspect of this like wanted to build this world. Totally. So those are my favorites. I also appreciated how realistic the cordyceps, like not virus, but the cordyceps pandemic was, because they based that off of actual real cordyceps who take over fucking ant corpses, which is disgusting and creepy. And so I just appreciated that. Yeah. Things that I didn't like, because I did the stealth mode, there were times where it was really slow for me. Yeah. And I wanted to just blast through it, but it felt like whenever I blasted through it, I always died. So I always ended up stealthing. And it made the game really slow in some parts for me where I just wanted to get through it to see the next cutscene, which is terrible. The UI bug of not being able to see the actual thing selected was just a travesty. Yeah. And that's rough. And I think on top of all of that, I don't have really any other criticism that I could give it for just like the normal person. I think for me particularly, I get really high anxiety playing games like this.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were some situations where I was so stressed out that I just wanted to quit and be done with it. I like the hotel basement, the sewer, all of like
where you fall in the elevator.
Yeah.
I hated that part so much.
It was so awful. And
so scary.
The amount of anxiety that I had while playing through some of these scenes made me a little bit nauseous sometimes, where I was like, I just want to be done. I just want to be done. I just want to be done. And so I think if I was going to talk about like a thing that I didn't like, they did the anxiety stuff really well.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was a little too much more than what I would have wanted.
Yeah.
But they did a beautiful, amazing job at it, obviously.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm making Chris play the second one so I can watch, because I still want to see what happens.
Yeah.
And they do Seattle and Last of Us Part 2. And
cool.
with their beautiful landscapes, I want to see what they do with Seattle.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm going to do the second one and see it. But it was just, the anxiety was really high for me the whole time.
Yep. I didn't love the QuickTime events, which I already talked about.
Yeah.
I didn't love the quote-unquote puzzles, which we kind of touched on.
Yeah, they were not great.
It felt time-wasting to me.
Yeah. It felt like a puzzle for the sake of wanting you to just not walk through that area.
Yeah, and I'd rather just walk.
I'd rather walk.
But I think this was before walking simulators got more respect.
They felt like you had to be doing something the whole time.
You have to do something.
Yeah.
And I hated the diving. I hated it.
Was it because you hated it because it was creepy or just a bad mechanic?
I just don't like diving.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't like the diving. You could barely see.
Yeah. It wasn't really clear what you were supposed to be doing when you dove.
I got lost a lot.
Yeah.
I didn't like that part.
And it was really repetitive.
Yeah.
There was one puzzle where I chose to dive, and apparently there was a really easy solution to it, and I dove and went and found these like 3 other hidden rooms and then made my way back and solved the puzzle because I thought that's what you were supposed to do.
Yeah, they distract you.
Yeah.
And then the other only complaint that I had was the drops of the ammo. Mm-hmm. The ammo that it chose to drop sometimes felt very random.
Oh.
In a way that I didn't love. Like, it felt like it was purposefully trying to get me to use guns that I didn't use very often.
Oh, that's so interesting that you say that, because I feel like I had the opposite experience.
Weird. Okay, so like my mains were the hunting rifle and the pistol and the flamethrower. Mm-hmm. I had no trouble with the flamethrower drops. But for some reason, the pistol, I barely got any ammo for my pistol the whole game. Mm-hmm. It kept giving me ammo for the shorty.
Oh, okay. See, that's so interesting, because I mained with the shorty and with the rifle and with the other big shotgun.
Yeah.
And it felt like I would run out of ammo of those all the time. And so I would put them away and get the other stuff out so that I would make sure to have bullets.
Yeah.
And they would only give me the shit, or give me bullets for like the shit that I had out at the time. And so I never got more bullets for the stuff I wanted to use, even though they were empty.
I don't know.
It felt like it was the opposite of what I wanted the whole time.
Yes.
Which was your experience too. I don't know why. It just felt like it was the opposite of what I wanted.
Yep.
Yeah, so totally. I forgot about that.
Yep. Okay. What a good game, though.
It was really good.
Overall.
I was
What's your rating?
Emotional. Gosh. This is hard. Am I going to get beat up for this? I'm going to say 4 out of 5.
Okay.
And I'm saying it. This is because it's a Bridget rating, and not because I'm not like giving a general consensus rating. Beautiful, amazing game. Every single person should play it if they can go through it. There's like a story mode. You should do that one if you don't feel like you can.
Yeah.
You know. But for me, 4 out of 5, just because I really don't do well with the anxiety stuff. So 4 out of 5 for me. But everything was perfect about it. The devs did a beautiful job.
Yeah. 5 out of 5 for me. I loved it. I get what you're saying for sure. I felt a lot of anxiety as well, but it was just such a good game.
It was so good.
I could not give it anything but a 5 out of 5. We play a lot of 5 out of 5 games on this podcast.
We do. Maybe we should pick some like bad ones next to see if we can get some more judgment up in here.
Yeah. And I do recommend it.
Oh, I totally recommend it.
Yeah.
As long as you can make it through the like horror aspects of it. It's definitely a horror game.
I bet there's a version of this where you can watch the cutscenes.
Yeah, I think there's supposed to be something like that, and if not, I'm sure you can find it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
All right, we're going to stop it here because the game was just, we had so much to say, and we're going to talk about the show in the next one, which will be in a week. Mm-hmm. So, given that, Thank you for listening to our podcast. Mm-hmm. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe and rate it so the algorithm gods are in our favor. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Baddy Breakdowns, and visit our website at baddybreakdowns.com, made by the lovely Bridget Keene. The podcast art was done by Tanisha Vernikar, and it was edited by me, Maddie Wisnat. Join us next time to hear us two baddies break down The Last of Us TV show version. Whee!